I am not a big fan of defending the government. I'm not a big fan of doing call-out videos either. More often than not, I like to stick to discussing lore and doing reviews because that's what I think I'm best at. Today is a bit different, and I feel the need to specifically name two particular people for spreading outright lies about what is going on within the government of the state of Texas. Both Chibi Reviews and Otaku Spirit have videos right now here on YouTube that state that an anime ban law has been passed in the state of Texas. This is a blatant lie. Prior to sitting down and scripting this video, I watched both of their videos on the subject and noticed that they were not doing proper research in regards to these discussions, nor did they actually take the time to look at the Texas Penal Code that is being referenced within the particular law. On top of that, neither video actually contains a link within the description to the law itself or to Texas Penal Code, both of which are relevant to the fucking topic. It's almost as if they don't want you to look at it. It's almost as if they don't want you to think for yourself. It's almost as if neither of these people did the proper research to make statements like this without considering all of the angles or even consulting someone who even knows how to read law. Luckily for me, my business partner is a law student, and I have other friends that I could lean on that also work in law, on top of my own experiences during my journalistic days, having to read through bills to understand exactly what was within them. Both guys only looked at one section of the bill without looking at the term definitions at the start of the bill, which were literally only one click away. Here, I'll show you. Oh, click. Hey, look, the Texas Penal Code. Wasn't that easy? Now, in the interest of fairness, from the page that Chibi Reviews links, you could find the penal code and you could find the law. But he never references them, never goes over them, never discusses them, just claims that an anime ban law was passed, which the links that he has don't actually support. We are going to do exactly that, because I am not the type of person that is going to lie to you and act as if the things that you enjoy are going to get banned in Texas when they might not even get touched. Before we get into this particular video will be much shorter than a podcast that I did on the subject with my business partner Alex and other people who work for me at my company, GRINDSTONE Arts. That podcast will be linked in the description if you want to hear a much more long-form discussion over the law and the things that could be affected by it, so that you get accurate information from people who are actually informed on the subject, and we're actually able to talk more in depth on hypotheticals. Now, to determine what this particular law is going after, we have to look at what was ignored by both Chibi Reviews and Otaku Spirit: definitions. The specific terms in the bill are referenced in Texas Penal Code, and are even linked in the document you can find online. Yeah, this information was literally a click away, but because both of these guys were lazy, they didn't look it up. 4 things need to be considered: the terms promote, visual material, obscenity, and sexual performance. All of these have strict definitions in the Texas Penal Code. We're going to start with obscenity. Obscene means material or a performance that the average person applying contemporary community standards would find that, taken as a whole, to the prurient interest in sex, or depicts or describes patently offensive representations or depictions of ultimate sexual acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated, including sexual intercourse, sodomy, and sexual bestiality, and then it goes on to give even more detail. So much detail that it goes all the way from self-pleasure all the way to discussion of acts that even mentioning will get me demonetized, as if I probably haven't already seen the yellow $sign. As you can see by the image on your screen, and you can, again, easily find online in the links that I'm actually going to put in the description because I do my work, this penal code is very specific on what the law is looking for and how it defines obscenity. One part that we are going to come to later is specifically the sentence of, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value. We're going to come back to this because this is where actual cases, none of which has happened yet, and actual burden of proof will be at for the government were they to prosecute someone based on this law. Now we go into the definition of sexual performance. This is a very strict definition as well. Sexual performance means any performance or part thereof that includes sexual conduct by a child younger than 18 years of age. This is a key point, guys, because right out of the gate, trying to act as if this was going to ban all anime is ridiculous, because not all anime is specifically showing sexual acts of people under the age of 18. Now, are they? Again, these guys lied to you. Then the penal code goes into specifics about exactly what they are considering as these particular acts and what they would be looking for if you were to be charged with a crime under this particular law. Visual material is defined as photos, tapes, both physical and digital, and effectively go over just about any means on how you would procure them. As you can see here, it is very strictly defined. Promote is also very specifically defined as the means to procure, manufacture, issue, sell, give, provide, lend, mail, deliver, transfer, transmit, publish, distribute, circulate, disseminate, present, exhibit, or advertise, or offer, or agree to do any of the above. All of the definitions of the things that Texas law is looking for are very clearly defined within their penal code. More so than even federal, from what I'm told. The idea that the definitions that this document is working off of are broad sweeping and could be interpreted as anything is a fucking lie. To put all of this in the most layman's terms that I can, this law is about child porn. It's not about anime in general. The idea that Texas is going to be able to just ban anything that is anime or ban anything that might have certain elements of titillation is not what the law says. Even then, there is the distinct possibility that if someone tried to do their best Jack Thompson impersonation and get things that aren't pornographic banned, there would still need to be a court case where they would have to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt to a jury that one little element that I talked about earlier that we're going to now come back to, taken as a whole, lacks serious literary, artistic, political, and scientific value is incredibly important here. This is where things go from being artistic and considered protected under the First Amendment to things that are considered obscene, harmful, and dangerous, specifically the sexualization of minors, which in a court of law, a jury would be effectively determining whether or not these particular depictions are harmful to a community and whether or not the people possessing them should be sent to jail. Again, this law is specifically about characters under the age of 18 in specifically explicit sexual acts. On the federal level, there is a similar test to how this is defined called the Miller test. Effectively, a jury would be determining whether or not a piece of media is obscene based on whether or not the media exists for pure titillation using a minor as a source of the titillation, or if the act is part of a greater story that is being told. If this is the latter, it has artistic value and is protected under the First Amendment. If it is the former, well, it's not, because it's considered harmful, and harmful speech is not protected under the First Amendment, because it violates the rights of other people, and can lead to the harm of others. So the idea that this law is anti-First Amendment is also a lie, because it is specific in its definitions, and that it's going after sexual depictions of children, specifically effectively meant to titillate PDF files. What the court would be deciding is whether or not certain pieces of art that one might consider questionable could be banned. Even then, the state would have to prosecute people who own certain pieces of art. The only things that would likely end up being in a gray area in a court case would be depictions of characters that are under the age of 18 in strictly sexual scenarios. So some hentai and possibly some more extreme anime. Maybe, but you would have to make a very strong argument. Even then, you have to prove that the point is to arouse someone who is aroused by minors, as opposed to any sort of sexuality or nudity being part of a broader story. Here's a good example of that. Berserk would likely not be banned at all due to the eclipse or other elements because, let's take Casca for example, she is depicted in her 20s during the eclipse, and certain events that happened to her in life prior to that she is depicted in her 20s, and if not, when she's even younger, the depictions of SA that happened to her are not meant to titillate. They're never presented as titillation, but rather are meant to horrify, to give a grim idea of what the universe of Berserk is. Now, I'm not going to discount that there might be anime out there which will be harder to argue against. Hentai being the most obvious, because there's quite a bit of hentai, because Japan's age of consent is a little bit lower. That takes place maybe in a high school or something, that might be banned under Texas law because it is specifically in the Texas law under the age of 18, and porn is meant to titillate. So there would have to be a discussion there, and it could go either way, at least in my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer. Another anime that could be in a gray area, maybe or maybe not, I wouldn't mind hearing more opinions from, people who actually understand the law, would be Redo of Healer, where there are more than one characters, at least to my understanding, people can correct me on that if they would like to, that there are characters that are under the age of 18 that are sexually assaulted. But then again, if it's meant to horrify, not meant to titillate, that's where the argument is going to lie. But again, this does not mean that a bunch of anime is going to get banned. The court has to prove that these particular instances are meant to be pornographic in nature, by the definitions of sexual acts in the Texas Penal Code. This is where things get tricky, because it's very hard to argue that something lacks serious value or is not artistic in its nature. That is why the Texas Penal Code is as specific as it is in regards to what they are looking for. And by the way, again, these things that they are looking for were completely ignored by these other YouTubers. Even then, given how the burden of proof to find anything beyond what is blatant is as difficult as it is, it's more than likely that anything that people are going to get busted for under this law are going to be people that possess imagery that we're all bothered by. Well, at least I hope we're all bothered by. If you don't believe what I'm saying, fine. I invite anyone to send this video to their favorite lawtuber, i.e. actual lawyer, who knows more about law than I do. I would imagine that would be all of them. Either way, I'm confident in my reading of this, and I'm confident that I'm being truthful about this, unlike some people, and I'm confident enough to open myself to scrutiny. Unlike the other YouTubers that I'm criticizing, I'm willing to be open and honest about what is exactly going on here, as opposed to trying to create a panic online to try to get more clicks on your video for more AdSense dollars, you cynical hacks. To close this out, I find it insulting to see people that do these videos without complete consideration for the law, simply to deceive their audiences, to try to build a Pavlovian response to keep them clicking. The fact of the matter is that in this day and age, more people trust the words of YouTubers, likely now more than ever. It's more important than ever for people who do this type of content to be honest about it, about what is there, and do your damn research. If you can't do that, you are completely and totally worthless and should just stop discussing these issues. Stop trying to comment on the law when you're not going to do your research into it. This particular topic was way outside the depth of these guys. If you can't even be honest about the basics or take 5 minutes to do some actual work. And on top of that, fuck you for making me defend the government on anything. I don't mind defending the great state of Texas. Last time I was there, I met some of the friendliest people I've ever met and overall had a great time. I love Texas. But I don't like defending any government because governments are ran by people and people are stupid. I'm pissed off at the idea that I'm forced to be an honest man because some idiots can't take the time to do the research to be truthful about simple shit.